Hello, my name is Chris Jansen. Welcome to the True Media Roundtable discussion. This is our seventh week, I believe, discussing various topics related to freedom, natural law, and truth. And I've invited some awesome guests here today, and we're going to talk today about the subject of religion and what I'm calling it deconstructing religion. And I'm bringing this up because in our last True Media Roundtable discussion, the subject of God came up, and God, that word was getting tossed around. And I think that's a word that can be misleading because different religions use it in different ways, and everybody has their own concept in their head of what God is or what that word means. So I think that's a good place to start. I'm going to give each awesome person here a couple minutes to say something about, go ahead and introduce yourself if you have a website, and then talk a little bit about what does the word God mean. I'm going to start with John. John, you want to start us off?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. My name's John Wydogan, Natural Freedom League, naturalfreedomleague.com. And what God is, um, I think that God to me has always been um, I guess, being raised Christian. At first, it's this sort of extra authority beyond your parents. But as my life went on, um, I definitely had a spiritual connection that I was aware of, even through Christian faith. I remember being at like campfire and like actually having like a spiritual experience. It just was all based around this idea of Jesus. But all those people there focusing their energy, I recognize that later on as like a real thing. There's like a real energy there. So ultimately, God is the creative force, the life force. I think we can all tap into it. We're all a part of it. But then you got lower G God, and that's when you turn away from the natural God and man tries to replace God. We look to create a new constitution, a new creation, and we recreate ourselves, which is like goes against one of the commandments in the Bible, which is one truth that like you could pull from the Bible. It's all about discernment. Ultimately, I think you can take good and bad from religion, because there is a spiritual essence to it all. That little nugget of truth is what pulls people in, even though it gets inverted and used against us. So that's my take.
Right on. Thanks, John. I like that. It's a good way to start it off. And let's go to Lawrence next.
All right. First off, I cannot define God. It's not, I can't define God. But for me to express what I feel God is, it is to me infinite consciousness. So it's what we all are beyond our bodies. Although it is the material world as well. And it's something that we are all intricately connected to. I mean, we are it. Um, like I said, it's impossible to define, but yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to say. I mean, asking define God. I can tell you what God. Well, I can't tell you what isn't. But yeah, it's a difficult question, man. It's a very difficult question. It's a very, very huge question. I mean, it's like the biggest question of all time, really. And so, yeah, I personally, I can't define God.
Hey, that's honest. I like that. That's honest answer. Um, Lawrence, your website's Principle of Care, right?
Oh, yes. Yep. Lawrence Watson. And my website's theprincipleofcare.com.
Awesome. Right on. And to this week we have with us James Ford. You want to introduce yourself, James? And I don't know if you have a website too, right?
thanks again. Thanks for the invite to this conversation. Yeah, the website is truthtoday.org at the bunker. Uh, and I have a series called Hitting the Bricks where I do interviews with people on the street and the roots of occupation, which I've been trying to just a conversation. And I think it's interesting. I think it's good. We use these words like religion, and for me, it relates to like a ritual. We all, and the idea of God is really a word. And for me, religion is made of the by the hand and mind of man. It's people who have had experiences with what maybe what they're through whatever the religion may be. It's shared in a ritual, and I think as any ritual, when it, if it's God, when you that relationship, if the ritual becomes more about the ritual than maybe an honest connection to that which we understand as God, that whatever that may be, then it becomes a lot about the ritual. It was interesting, and it may sound like seem like a strange jump, but I was talking to someone the other day about freedom and how we have put the flag, like the American flag, is this, and the Pledge of Allegiance is this representation of what freedom is. But if we don't understand what the word freedom is, if we don't understand what that is, then we're standing up, pledging allegiance to a flag, and anybody can give us a narrative if we don't understand that narrative for ourselves. So I think the same is religion. If we don't have any kind of understanding and we're just being prescribed a narrative of what God is through this mechanism which we call religion, then we don't have an honest relationship with what that may be, whether it's right or wrong. So for me, religion, it's always been a type of control mechanism, and I like the idea of speaking about natural law, because I'm not saying religion is right or wrong. I don't think that's for me to say, but I think it's to understand that it really is a mechanism shared by man. So it's going to be fallible, and as I think as the guys were saying earlier, for me it is something beyond my limited intellect, that thing which we may call God or whatever that is. So I think religion, and I think it's good to talk about, because it's like anything else. We all, when we're part of the team, we kind of we act through whatever the prescribed ritual is, and we don't really think about it sometimes. And I think it may get us in trouble. So
Right.
that's kind of my, you know.
Thanks, James. That's awesome answer. Let's go to Philip next.
All right. Hey, my name's Philip Roy. I am a philosopher, an activist, and the editor in chief of the More Light Journal. Check that out at morelightjournal.com. So God, yeah, what a great discussion so far here. I think there's a reason why Judaism, why they say like don't make graven images of God, and I think it's on a similar wavelength of what Taoism says about the Tao. And I would basically consider those concepts synonymous, God and the Tao. And as soon as you try to define it, that's not it. And so I think that's why Lawrence shied away from wanting to define God. But I think I can come up with synonyms for what I would say God is. And first and foremost, God is the all-encompassing truth. That's everything, right? The truth is synonymous with God for me, as well as the cosmic mind, or just the first mover, the impetus of creation and creation itself. And that's that kind of sums up how I see God.
Right on. Thanks, Philip. I love how this goes. As each person goes, it adds another little piece to the puzzle, and it creates this whole picture. So let's go to Catherine next. You want to introduce yourself and give us your thoughts?
Sure. I'm Catherine Waters with 2 T's, Catherine with a C. And God for me has always been nature and health. like being as close to nature and health as you could possibly be. And for, in my experience, they were, I mean, it was, that's what was being like destroyed in you and replaced by some man-made thing being infringed, and you were to listen to what man said, what those outside of you said, instead of what your gut said, what you knew inside, what you saw, what you felt. And you know kind of was a pretty big red flag early on. And it propelled me to basically, through fitness and constantly interacting with the laws of nature, because it never lied. Like when you exercised or did any kind of weight training or running or anything, that interaction with the laws of nature was just always so refreshing. And because it never lied, and it gave you like a true reading, true feedback, unlike most of the people, unfortunately, that I was surrounded by early and throughout my life. And so yeah, God was always that feeling, that knowing in my gut, always listening to my gut over what anybody else said. No, I mean, and it was not easy to hold on to it. I mean, I had to work really, 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 really hard, because I tell you, um, the people around me truly did a good job of trying to undermine and infringe a man-made version of what God was on you. And
Yeah,
so,
they do that. I love that you brought up nature. That's awesome. Um,
you know,
Great answer. Let's go to Will next.
What's up, everybody? My name is Will Keller, and my website is naturalfreedomleague.com. And it's good to have my partner on here, John. And so that's a huge question, right? That's the ultimate question. That's the the journey that we're on, the highest level of self realization. Um, you can use terms like the all or source. This is the source of all energy in creation and in existence. This is the creative intelligence, the one or the source of force that has created all of nature's forces. And we are connected to this, and ultimately we're on a journey to discover what that is. um, and I want to second all you guys said, some great points, but I want to second what John said about lowercase g. And this could be lowercase c creator, because we also have we're endowed with spirit, and we can manifest and create our reality in accordance to the laws of nature that God has put in place. But when you step out of that and you try to control that, then you're getting into like the little g God, where you think you are the apex of creation, and you can control things that are beyond ourselves as humans. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. Thanks,
Cool.
Will.
Yep.
I liked everything that was said. And that, my thought before the meeting was to kind of point out, and I wish I'd looked up this word. There's a word that's, maybe someone can help me with this word, like anthropomorphize or something. A lot of times people try to turn God into this being, like this guy in the clouds, or um, and I think that's a big mistake. And so I was kind of thinking along the lines when Lawrence was saying, how can I define what God isn't? And I think, to me, that is one thing that sticks out as not a good way to look at what God is. When I'm talking about the word God, I don't mean some dude in the sky that is like a being. I think of God as kind of what I heard a couple of you say, like all of creation, all of nature, the spirit of everything. It's a word to define the essence of all of reality itself. And I really like what Catherine was saying about that nature gives you this feedback, you know, and what James said about it's this personal realization and staying away from the storylines. And so I think next, what I was hoping we could do is kind of get a little bit more into religion and the problems that are inherent in religions and how we avoid those pitfalls. So for me, it's, I grew up in Christianity. My dad was a preacher. Luckily, he was really well read and open minded compared to most. But, when I turned about 18, 19, I realized I didn't want to be called a Christian because I realized that there was a lot that went along with that I didn't want to be part of, like the Crusades, for instance, and how religion has created a lot of problems for people. So I'd like you guys to reflect on religion and the problems inherent in religion. And we'll go in the same order. We'll go to John.
You're on mute.
Oh,
John, you're on mute.
There we go. Hit that button, buddy.
My bad.
All
All
good.
good.
The first thing that comes to mind is the concept of exoteric versus esoteric. So if you're looking at religion from an exoteric perspective, it becomes a bit more harmful, a lot more harmful, completely harmful. And yeah, to like look at the deeper meaning of what's being said, not taking it at face value, going over it again, and then being stuck on just one religion is also a bad thing. I think like my journey for truth definitely started with looking at different religions as I was rejecting the Christianity that I was raised with to an extent. Luckily for me, I feel I didn't throw out the baby with the bathwater, that I still kept the positive aspects that I saw in Christianity, and then but then look to other religions and trying to find the grain of truth that's within all of them. So
Commonality, yeah. Yeah, there's a good reason why people flock to religions, and so there's got to be something in there worth listening to. All right, what are your thoughts, Lawrence?
So to me, religion, I went to a couple different ways with this. I'll say growing up, and I don't mean growing up like from childhood up until adulthood. I mean like growing up since I first opened my eyes. That's when I really, learned how to walk and learned how to, do everything really. But so religion basically meaning to tie back or to hold back. And the inverted sense of religion, it's to hold you back from your true nature, to hold you or tie you back from God, that force, all that is. And to touch on the God and kind of tie this into religion, God isn't a concept. God isn't an idea. God isn't a word. It isn't a definition. It is nothing that we can actually it's funny, we can express but we can't express. It's a paradox. It's you can't touch it, but you can sense it and you can feel it. And that's why I tend to like shy away from even the trying to define what God is. But religion's been designed to hold people back from being truly religious, which being truly religious, like someone like Krishnamurti would talk about. He never used religion in a inverted way. He never talked about religion. He said religion a lot, but the word religion a lot, but he said it in a true sense, to hold you back to what you are, to hold you back and to keep you in that infinite state, you know, that connection with source, with nature. So, and you know, we get a bad taste in our mouth because this world, society, and everybody's been so brainwashed by these, you know, organized religion and everything else, and the words and the, you know, they're taking everything physically, they're taking everything literally, right? And a lot of that stuff isn't meant to be taken literally. It's very metaphysical. It's very spiritual. It's very deep. God is something to be experienced intimately. It's something to be experienced individually, right? It's an individual experience. I can't tell you what God is because you have your own conception of God. You know, it's like this whole thing. So religion is the true, in the truest sense of the word, religion is a direct experience to that which is.
What was the Christian Murray, the person you?
Oh,
Jiddu,
right? His name's J. Krishnamurti.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Incredible
if
philosopher.
Wants to check that out.
Yeah, if you want to.
Sharing that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Lawrence. I think I went to Philip next.
That's right. Wow, great stuff, guys. So yeah, religion. Yeah, you know, religion means, you know, to tie together, and that could be in a union or a yoga with a higher power, or, you know, capital G God, or, you know, it could be to dogma and falsehood. And, you know, I too was, you know, of you guys who said that, you know, you pulled away from Christianity at some point in your path. It was because I put, you know, kind of like what the theosophists say, that, you know, there's no religion higher than truth. You know, I put my thirst for truth above my conception of God and my conception of religion and my conception of, you know, right and wrong. And that's, you know, what really carved part of my path, you know, like when I was a Christian and I started waking up to the reality around me, you know, the one thing you encounter, you know, about the government is Romans 13. And that's absolute mind control. And it's absolutely not having anything to do with what a true religion is, or having anything to do with, you know, what a true higher power or being of love would want us to behave like. And that was the thing that pulled me away from Christianity, knowing in my heart of hearts that obeying the government, no matter what, it, you know, isn't right. And I don't want to be on the side of a God that would, or, you know, argue in favor of that.
What's
And
the Romans 13?
Yeah, Romans 13 basically says that the government is the highest power, which, you know, natural law is the highest power. So, you know, when you have a tyranny, to basically accept it and lay down your arms, and, you know, because God put it in place, and that's what you're supposed to do, and many Christians think. And that is the verse that, you know, the church used in Nazi Germany to pacify the Christians at the time, who should have been standing up. And so it's dogma. It doesn't have anything to do with God or truth. And I knew that because I had a connection to my heart. And I think that is, you know, that's where God lies. That's your connection to the source, is through the heart. You know, they say in terms of natural law, that natural law is written in the hearts of man. That's literal. It's literally encoded in your heart, your connection to right and wrong. And this concept, you know, that's the true religion. Yeah, that's the true religion. And, you know, it's funny, I've kind of circled around back to Christianity in many ways, because I think esoteric Christianity is very empowering and says a lot about natural law and says a lot about what's right, and really helps you understand reality and helps you understand your point, and where you are in the universe. And I think it was John who mentioned the difference between esoteric and exoteric. That is so fundamental to understand, and I think there's a lot of good in that, but it's not a dogmatic thing, you know. Like, true religion is not dogmatic. Dogmatism says to stick with an idea, you know, even if you don't know if it's right or wrong, and it says to not question that idea. And that's not a stance that someone takes if they love truth, and if they really have a connection to God. That's not a it's not a stance you're going to take, to just believe something because that's what a book says or that's what your preacher says, you know. And you know, there's so many religions out there that have dogma, and they're not even, you know, formalized religions, you know, like the state or atheism. Like, those are religions with dogma too, you know. It goes all over the place, but I think that's dogma is the hallmark of what a false religion is.
Thanks, Philip.
Yeah.
That's a good point, and that's something I was hoping to get to. So I'm glad you bridged that gap. Let's go to James.
That Krishnamurti is his basically his life of work was based on the quote, truth is a pathless land. And his idea was truth is a pathless land. It's very interesting. He's basically said, I'm not your guru, I'm not your teacher. He says no man can take another man to truth. And it was interesting. He was being groomed to be a world leader for the Theosophists, and he had a lot of wealth behind him. It was an interesting story. He was found on he lived in India, and he was very poor. And they found him on a beach, and this guy Ledbetter was one of the Theosophists, and they adopted him. And this woman, and they were training him actually to be this world leader. And so, and he was in Oxford, and he said he was very, and it was very wealthy. They had a lot of money behind it. And he said, he's like, you know, we'd get up in the morning his brother, they adopted his brother as well, and they brought him to England. They believe it was England. And it's interesting. It's very important to talk about this person, because and he said, basically, if he said I liked oranges, he would have oranges every morning. If he liked bike. So anyway, long story short, they said, okay, well, we're going to have you speak before this global kind of Theosophist religion type of thing. Oh, he was considered the world teacher. And he said, he got in front of all those people. He says, my first act as the leader of this organization is to dissolve it. He said, because truth is a pathless man. I am going to dedicate my life to help free man, because no man can lead another to freedom. And he used to say, the word is not the thing. And it's interesting because religion, as I think someone else suggested to bind, it suggests that there's someone else is to be an intermediary between us and that experience, you know, from my understanding. And that doesn't mean that he's right or that's wrong, but the suggestion that we need an intermediary or some kind of authority that's going to teach us morality or how to engage with that which we understand to be God or whatever, you know. So yeah, Krishnamurti is I've come, and the understanding of the nature of thought is a huge part of his what he spoke about. You know, I had a great experience with that myself.
Awesome, James. A little history lesson and brought it back around to the heart. Great points, man. Oh, Catherine, last time you spoke, you didn't tell us where to find your work. I know you're on the One Great Work Network.
Well, my YouTube channel got taken down. I don't really have a website, and I have a BitChute, and I have an Odyssey channel that I pretty much, the Odyssey channel I just started, you know, when I started with One Great Work. And yeah, and that's pretty much it.
Cool. Right on. Well, what are your thoughts on this religion everybody's talking about?
Well, what I feel is the real religion is well, I mean, I can only really speak to the United States, but it seems like other countries as well, is money. I feel like money has become the god, and that's what people really worship. And they could profess to be God fearing, but I mean, there's so many people that will just not forego the money and not really not I mean, how do I say, like, I feel like, yeah, money has just become God and the people who control it, and it literally has been so weaponized and so manipulated, and it's created out of debt, and people just continue to follow it, even though it clearly is at the expense of real wealth and natural law and their health and doing the right thing. And and yet just kind of blindly and unconsciously, people just follow it and believe that it's real wealth. And I get really annoyed when I hear people refer to money as wealth instead of referring to nature as wealth and natural law as wealth and helping one another as wealth. And when people refer to the powers that be or other people as millionaires and billionaires, to me, it's just completely fraudulent, because again, like, fitness was always like, that's what I turned to help myself be oriented in life. Because I mean, this life was so disorienting and so confusing that if it wasn't for fitness and working out and, things like yoga, which, it was always about aligning with, natural law, and money was so obviously misaligned from all of that. And everybody was following it completely, going in the wrong direction from being aligned with natural law. And I refuse to do it. And here
Yeah,
we
talk
are.
about what we're really tied to, or what really binds us. Money is what really controls a lot of people's decisions, and even churchgoers. So that's a
you
really good
know
point.
yeah,
Good,
it ends
great
up.
point. Thanks, Catherine.
Sure.
Will.
All right. So, even though there is a positive connotation with religion, religio, right? This does not exist in the natural world whatsoever. And here's the problem, is that the majority of people on the planet, they have a false definition of what religion is. That's because people don't search for answers that they think they already know. Religion is a control mechanism. It's a control mechanism to control the progress of human consciousness. It's a belief system. So it's erroneous, it's dogmatic, and it's unchallenged. Right? This is a big problem, and a lot of people think the cultural religions, Christianity, Judaism, uh, Buddhism, etc., etc. But no, some of the biggest religions are authority, government, the belief in authority, money, the mainstream media. Right? These are all religions, and people follow these. And the reason why it's a control mechanism is because it controls your thoughts, therefore it controls your behavior. And this is the big problem. We need to get back to principles, because, like James said, um, religion always claims to be the arbiter of truth and morality, meaning they're the middleman, right? From you knowing the existence of God, nature, and those forces, um, which are objective and inherent in creation, and we can discover that. So the first step is people need to have that desire to learn something new and look for truth, seek for that. You got to have the willpower to do that. And You know, I mean, just looking back on history, you can see what the cultural religions have done. Genocide. I mean, they set up the platform for government to come in place, which is the ultimate religion. So to me, religion is the one and only problem. All religions.
Love it. Thanks, Bill.
Until we can get to that one day, hopefully in the future, we can get to that positive connotation of reunite with truth. But that doesn't exist in what I see.
Not the way it's going on right now. I'm going to bust out with some definitions here. Um, oh yeah, I was bringing up the word anthropomorphize. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but anthropomorphize is a word, and according to Merriam-Webster, it's to attribute human form or personality to, or to attribute human form or personality to things not human. So that's the word I was going for there. But my other favorite, one of my favorite sites for etymology is Etymon Line, and in there he goes through and gives you sort of like the history of a word and where it was used. And religare means to bind fast or place an obligation on or bond between humans and gods. And the other meaning that you were discussing, the positive connotation, would be um, basically to begin again. And try to see how he wrote it there. Uh, to again, legere, read again, go through again. So, you know, if the world wasn't as polluted as it is, I think religion would be us constantly realizing truth and recognizing truth, almost like the phoenix in the flames, becoming a new person again, and which is very much a learning process and a giving up of the ego, like we talked about in another episode. But I just wanted to talk real briefly and say, a couple of the books that really made a big impression on me getting out of Christianity was Thomas Paine, The Age of Reason, a pretty incredible book, and another book, Bamboozled, which is Besieged by Lies, and that's Timothy Aldred. And those books really broke apart Christianity for me. And so if you want to check out some books, those I would recommend. And the only other thing I was going to say is you guys were bringing up this idea of the middleman, and that makes me think of Martin Luther, posting on the Catholic Church, like, you can have a relationship with God. And that brings it back to what you guys were saying about the heart. And before that, had all these church authorities saying that, no, you got to come through us. Only we could talk to God, And so that's a big deal, is separating from that whole idea of somebody else owns this connection to that which is within all of us, the very reality that we come from. What we're here existing from is the creation, the creator. So that's what I got on that. And so, man, we're hitting on a lot of good points. The last thing I was going to kind of talk about is the idea of spirituality, so kind of bringing it back and ending on a positive note. Let's talk a little bit about spirituality, what it means to you, and how spirituality can change things for the better and get out of this paradigm. You want to go first again, John?
Sure. Yeah, I was thinking about spirituality too. I think it's almost the opposite of religion, because obviously we're not connected to the true religion. So it's the spirituality is your exploration towards finding the true religion, towards finding God, towards finding the truth. And if you look at I think it was the Constantine, whatever that conference they had, where they actually took spirituality out of the Bible. And so, yeah, there definitely is it is a spiritual battle. So spirituality is your path to that truth. And I just wanted to say, it popped in my mind just the concept of that God is law and that law is unchangeable. And since it's unchangeable, that's why we call it the truth, because it'll always be, and as men, we try to write it down and explain it. But if all the books were burned, the truth would still exist. So that was just the thought I had.
Love it. It's very poetic too. God is law. Love it. Like that Lex Rex shirt I like to wear from What on Earth is Happening? The
Yep.
law. That's good. Okay, Lawrence.
The law is king.
The law is king. You got it.
Before I begin on spirituality, I want to mention Krishnamurti again, because you said you went to the dictionary and you said something about like coming back into truth or coming back into God, or that, and that's like another part of the backbone of Krishnamurti's teachings is like removing all concepts and removing all definitions and all like ideas about what you think reality or the tree or whatever is. And that's when you connect, and how transcendental is that, right? I mean, he was beyond his time, obviously, but so spirituality to me, obviously you can say it's not physical, but it's within the realm of physicality. It's something that's not, it's the unseen realm. Natural law is spiritual laws. So they're to touch on natural law, since they are spiritual laws, they cannot be perceived, but they can be perceived if you're connected to that realm. Now, most people aren't connected to the spiritual realm, and not consciously, at least. So we're trained to cut ourselves off from spirituality. So we think that all that exists is what we see in front of our face, or what we can perceive with our senses, but we don't even use those properly on a large scale, right? So spirituality, to connect to what it means to be a spiritual individual or spiritual being, or what you are at your core, is the essence of human existence. It's what we are, here to do. At least we are, right? I can't really speak for all of humanity like I would have probably a year ago. I would have said, we're all here to connect to our spirits, but I've recently had some pretty humbling experiences where I've learned otherwise. But nonetheless, the spiritual realm is something that it's like God. It's something that we have to connect with on a personal level. Nobody can force us to connect with that realm. No one can show us what it is. No one can, we can point all we want. We can plant seeds all we want, but ultimately, right, we have to water those seeds on our own. So I like what Kat said about exercise. That's definitely something that can connect you to the spiritual realm if used properly, not for like armoring, right? Or because you're a wounded child and you want to bulk up and make yourself look a certain way because you're afraid of letting people in, or whatever psychological thing you're going through. To connect in yoga, right? Yoga is, the essence of yoga is to dive deep into the physical body to reach that spiritual reservoir of what we are. So
like a grounding.
Right. Yeah. A grounding. It's a paradox. It's you're grounding, but you're also going into the, to the heavens. Right. So it's like this symbiotic dynamic that we can tap into, and we must to be able to actually feel and taste and perceive the real, the truth, or truth, just truth.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to Philip.
All right. I just real quick want to say thank you, John, for saying that God is law. I had meant to say that earlier. I also think it's interesting that law said backwards is all, both in the sense of ALL, meaning everything, or AL, which is an ancient name of God. So that being said, spirituality, the comparison I'm going to use right now is religion is to spirituality as statism is to anarchism. And that connection there would be, authority. When religion is the authority, it's not spirituality. Spirituality is you being the author of your own life path, and returning to that connection to the all, to God, to the true religion. And, that's very individualistic. And everyone's path is going to be different. Even, every incarnation you have, your path's going to be different. And I think that's, that's really important to understand, that spirituality is just personal, and it's about you carving your way. Row your boat gently down the stream.
I love your appreciation of words and how
Thank you.
you take words apart. You're really good with words, Philip. That's awesome.
Appreciate that. I like words.
They're important. There's a lot of
Yeah,
magic.
they
there.
rule the world.
That might be, maybe that's going to be our next episode, as words, the
Ooh,
importance of words. So
that'd be a good one.
let's go to James.
Yeah, I think that's it's a process. It's a because I think it resides in that we live in a world that is affected by subjugation of nature, which is an ideology that people have enacted for a long time. And in that, the structure is created that kind of denatures us, and through words and through belief systems and through these mechanisms, we lose. I believe it's in thought. That's my kind of perception of it. It resides in thought or fixed ideas, and so we need words. And it's not a knock, but we have, like, to say the word spirituality. I know for myself, growing up in a city, there's no nature. So it is almost like when I hearing the word spirituality, like someone somewhere along the line, people have derogatory terms like tree hugger, and somehow this comes into somehow how you identify yourself, and all these games played where this structure of a control related to this kind of identification of who I am, and related to this removal of being connected to nature. So spirituality, I think it's just a word that really exists when we need to maybe get there. But my feeling is that we are consciousness is, and when we can start removing these obstacles we have from what our natural state of being, and I think like someone has suggested, religion is to bind. We're all connected anyway. I mean, that's my perception. Even if we just say human beings, we're all of this being. We're all humans. So we've created these structures that categorize us and separate us, and which we just live every day. So spirituality for me is when we, little by little, when we're able to rid ourselves of these block formations of thought that we kind of appropriated over time, we get more into a natural state of being. I think and for me, I needed the word spirituality because it was somewhere where I wanted to go, because I didn't want to be stuck in this kind of the place I was, which was more of like, that formation. So my idea of spirituality is it's a guide to where maybe I would want to be, or of
and
what
like
is
almost like a door to freedom. So what came up into my mind while you were talking.
Yeah, like the illusion of duality. The words I put on is the bondage of self, and on the other side of bondage of self, spirituality is to that place of freedom, as you suggested.
That's a cool, man. I love it when I get a new thought. I know when you guys are putting out these great ideas, it encourages inspiration, which is awesome. All right, Catherine, what do you got about spirituality?
I guess, like, to me, spirituality means like being self-actualized and fully integrated. because it was clear early on that we were, in my experience, and in other people's, but maybe not to the same degree that I was experiencing it, that our healthy, vital parts of us were being labeled as like bad, just healthy emotions, healthy expressions, having normal responses to whatever was happening, anger, healthy sexuality, healthy sadness or joy, or just being like vibrant and spirited, got labeled, as like bad or treated like it was a pathology. And, I just spent like a lot of decades studying all of this, like how these parts of ourselves get cut off. And so many people spend so much of their time, effort, and energy holding those healthy parts of themselves down. Um, John Bradshaw used to call it like it was trying to hold a beach ball underwater. And that's how the sociopaths that be end up getting where they are, because they end up, using that energy against us. And so spirituality is just having all of our healthy parts like integrated. Like just a good example again, is the physical anatomy. And when I was always like working out all the time, like it was always about being in proportion and having all of your physical, muscles and body parts like in proportion. And so I would always think of the same thing on an emotional level. It's like having all of our emotional parts also in proportion, not having you know more anger than we have compassion, or more compassion than we have like these other stronger feelings. And people, they would always call you negative, like if you told an unpleasant truth, you were always labeled negative. And so like these, that's how people just learn to stuff all of these healthy parts of themselves down. And the whole part is to let them out and let them in, in a healthy balance. And
Yeah.
that
And
that to me is
alignment
yeah,
was
you
a word
know
that was coming to my mind too while you were saying proportion, balance, alignment. Those are good. It's a good way of
yeah.
putting it. I love it. Thank you, Catherine. Will.
Just realized we're recording this on the 23rd, and that's the thalamic number of getting out of mind control. So, perfect topic for religion, right? Getting out of mind control on the day of the 23rd. What is spirituality? To me, it's the knowing and understanding of the science of nature, of natural law, cosmic law, universal law, God's law, and not only just knowing and understanding, it's living it, right? This is about actions. Ritual is in spiritual. Ritual is all about your actions, your behavior, the things that you're going to keep doing, your habits. So, and understanding that we are part of the one great mind of the source consciousness, God, and that we are co-creators in this reality. So, we all matter, and what we do to each other matters, and we all have to contribute. There's responsibility there, right? So, self-ownership, sovereignty, understanding that you are sovereign, you are not a slave, inherent, and that's objective. Even though we do have dark influencers here to control our behavior and take advantage of us, but and understanding the two sacred principles of non-aggression and self-defense, and this applies to all life. So and lead by example. So take this knowing and understanding, process it, apply it to yourself, and align yourself and then portray it in your actions.
Right on. You you pack so much in. And on that note, I got to mention everybody in has been doing a really good job on this talk of being concise and really putting a lot of information. It's almost like people need to watch this session on slow speed because there's a lot being said in a short amount of time. And I kind of want to bounce a little bit off of what Catherine was saying about exercise. I think of spirituality as a workout. It's hard freaking work. It's like when you choose the path of working on yourself, it's the smaller path. It's the tricky path that goes up into the woods that winds up the mountain. Everybody else is just trudging down this flat trail, that's well beaten down and easy to walk on, and that's what society is offering for people is comfort and safety. And those things are at the risk of true spirituality, which is a workout. It's difficult. It's forcing yourself to begin again, to lose everything you've gained and start over and look at things fresh in the moment, like being in the spirit. You think about, what do we say? I mean, what do we mean when we say in the spirit of things? It's being in the moment, it's being aware of what's happening right now, because that's all that really exists. That's all that God and reality are, is this moment that we're living. And we have this amazing gift of being here. And when we start letting ourselves go into the past or in the future or thinking I'm this or I'm that, we're getting distracted from what we really are, which is a reflection, a little crystal off the whole of everything, which is God, the universal love, creation, natural law, the all, the cosmic, and it's amazing opportunity that needs to be worked on, like exercise. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard, and that's why we're here, is to go through that difficult passage. Maybe this life is an opportunity, but it's a lesson. Yeah, you wanted to say something, Catherine?
I mean, I was just going to say the mental exercise is way harder than the physical exercise. Knowing like which parts of us we have to burn off and which ones to keep. Like a lot of people get them confused and they're keeping the ones that they need to kind of lose or, burn through, like, fat. And, they kind of have it backwards. Like they don't know. They've been so identified with, like, sometimes I just don't know what else to call it except like emotional cellulite or something. There's so much buildup people have, and they live through that instead of being able to step outside of it and see it and kind of burn it off.
I did one podcast episode that was called The Labyrinth, and I was talking about, in The Labyrinth, there's this garbage lady, and she's telling the heroine of the story, oh, you need this, you need that, and she's piling all this crap on her back. And then I'm comparing that to what we want to do on our spiritual journey, which is more of, like you're saying, a cutting off. Like you can almost imagine someone chiseling away at a sculpture. It's removing. Finding your true inner self is a removal. It's losing things. It's not gaining and adding things on and getting more crap, getting heavier and bigger. No, it's cutting things off and removing and getting more to the core and finding your true inner beauty, I'd say. So, yeah, great thoughts, man. This has given me a lot to go on. I think we'll start closing up, but if anybody else wants to do any closing thoughts, um, anybody have anything we missed or on the edge of your tongue you wanted to say?
Yeah, I'll say something real quick. And I meant to throw this into talking about religion and spirituality, but free will. This is what all religions do. It doesn't matter if it's the cultural or government or money or whatever. It removes free will, and this is a huge part of spirituality. You have to understand that we have free will, right? And this is extremely special. And so that's why we're responsible for our actions. But good chat. Thanks everybody. That phenomenal.
Yeah. Any other last wise words before we close it up? Go ahead.
I had one to add
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, John.
the word spirit, the fact that it actually comes from breath, from spire, right? So inspire is like, it's kind of like, it's interesting how breath is it's representative of that thing. It's right in our faces, but we don't think of it as like spirit, but it actually, that is where the word comes from. It's breathe. So to conspire is to breathe together, you know. There's actually that physical connotation of it as well, you know. But it also is that mental aspect. We're breathing together, but what are we doing with our time together? You know, are we conspiring to, rob and cheat people, or are we conspiring to build
Or aspire.
a moral society?
Aspire to be a better
So yeah,
world. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
You had something else, Catherine?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, someone, brought it up before about, always, like, like in the discussion of religion and like following this like authority and just always listening to people outside of yourself all the time. I mean, nothing could be more anti-nature than that. Um, again, like I've always been obsessed, like literally since the 70s, like with each human being that's born is supposed to be, raised and cultivated to reach their healthy potential. And then, the cord is supposed to be cut and you're supposed to be able to function, on your own, like separate. Like I've gotten so, I've been so obsessed with this stuff for so long. And, fitness and yoga have always like really helped me to understand like using the body as just the sort of subsystem to understand how the larger body is supposed to work. And the more individual, like, the vertebra are, the more they add to the whole. And I just thought like that's how we're supposed to function as human beings in the world. The more individual and unique a person is, the more they actually contribute to the whole. But that gets completely messed up. And so many people are just never raised to actually, have the cord cut so that they could function as that unique, separate individual, unique, organic individual that they're supposed to be. And
Yeah,
people have
and
lived,
look how now
yeah,
they are actually cutting that cord literally in public with people's health and saying we own your health and we're going to tell you what's best. And
you
that
know,
ties back into what John was saying about the breath too, and cutting off the breath, whereas for me, the most healthy thing I've learned in the last couple years is how to breathe. I've gotten
yeah,
real into Wim Hof breathing, and that has changed my life and changed my health to where
yeah.
I am more in touch with the spirit and my own health and the reality. So, good points. Good points. Thanks so much.
Yeah, just to touch on all of that, it reminds me. I said it in the talk, but I wasn't going to like elaborate because we were talking about certain subjects. But spirituality to me also is like I said, I mentioned walking, like learning how to walk again, learning how to breathe, learning how to, learning how to sit, learning how to do everything, and that's part of like the spiritual practice of, I guess being a spiritual being or allowing yourself to just be, it's almost like, if you want to say awakening, I know these terms have all been abused, but using the term awakening, having that flash of insight, like, oh man, I'm not this little tiny, just little me. I'm this infinite expansive being that's connected to all things, right? Now you're allowing all of that energy to enter into your physical body, your psychology and your physical, structure. And so it's like, it's almost like people might be getting mad at me for saying this, but it's taking care of itself. Like the manifestations, are like, You go to the gym, you start doing this, you start doing yoga, you start taking in good energy, basically, right? You start reading good books, you start interacting with conscious individuals, you start speaking the truth. That's the manifestation of allowing what you are to come into form, right? And so, I mean, then there's a free will component to it. I mean, obviously, you're using your will to establish that connection. But I mean, life to me is a dance between determinism and free will. It's a paradox. It's always it's symbiotic, and I can't comprehend that. I can't even begin to really go into that because it's so out of my psychological reach, right? But
it's like we get this opportunity to reflect. That's what I was kind of saying before with the crystal thing, where reality is God what is, and we're just kind of like a shard of a crystal that has this opportunity to reflect the truth,
Right.
And if you can be in alignment and tune yourself in, then you really shine. And that's kind of what we're trying to inspire other folks to do. So hopefully all these wise words will help out some other folks who are listening today, and they can pass that along. And I think as we all hear each other speak and take our turns speaking in the way we're doing in this roundtable, it helps us define and be more powerful with that voice and that light that we put out there in the world. So thanks so much for coming, guys. This is a very inspiring conversation. I appreciate all of your everything you guys have shared. It's really really good. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Good to
Thanks
meet
for
everyone.
having me.
Thanks, everybody.
Right
All right.
on.
Take care, everybody.
We'll meet again in 2 weeks. Same time, same place.
Cool.
Yeah, I like the idea of getting into words. So, guys, have a great night.